Good evening, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy, and it's another Dump the Corruption show. And what we're going to talk about here tonight is Lee and AIPAC, shaping up to be quite a conflict. Also, the free market myth. And finally, we'll be talking about RFKJ's campaign, and will he go over to the Libertarian Party in order to get onto the ballot? So, those are our topics for tonight. I see hello, Kay. Hello, Steve. I don't know whether Dee is going to be here today or tonight. I think she decided to take the night fully off. And so at this point, I am not expecting her. So let us get to the first of our pieces. Specifically, a piece from The Intercept called Facing AIPAC Onslaught. Representative Lee announces record small donor fundraising haul. AIPAC, which tried to recruit challengers to the squad member, dropped $5 million on her last race. Maybe they'll go for $15 million this time. This piece is by Akilah Lacey. It was written on January 25th, 2024 at 6 a.m. Somebody gets up early. There's a picture of Lee now. Lee participates. She's a Democrat of Pennsylvania. Participates in the House Oversight and Accountability Committee at the Rayburn House Office Building in Washington. Looks like Dee is surprising me.
Hello.
Hello, Dee. I thought you were taking the night off.
Oh, yes, I was. Then I figured, I'll come on and join Joe.
Oh, thank you, Dee. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So we have three topics for tonight. We're talking about, of course, we have a Dump the Corruption show, but we're covering the Lee AIPAC conflict and free market mythology, which underlies a lot of the campaigns we'll be seeing in 2024. And also, we'll be considering whether Robert F. Kennedy is likely to run as a libertarian or not, because there's been some talk about that.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
So now what's up is the first article, which is one from The Intercept about Lee.
Okay.
And I was in the middle of that one. Not in the middle. I had started going through it. So I'll go back to that at this point. Expecting an onslaught of spending from pro-Israel groups, Democratic Pennsylvania Representative Lee's campaign announced Thursday it had raised over $1 million, dwarfing typical fundraising numbers in Democratic primaries. I don't know if I believe that.
Huh.
I seem to remember, of course, they may just be talking primaries themselves and not the general election, but I seem to remember some really big numbers in Democratic primaries in 2022, and that they were much over 1 million. But anyway, Lee, a member of the Progressive Squad in Congress, does not take money from corporate PACs, and more than 90% of the contributions were made in increments of less than 250, according to her campaign. I wonder what the percentage of dollars are that come from small dollar donations.
Mm.
That would be an interesting figure to take a look at. Lee is one of the major targets of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee this cycle. And of course, is AIPAC. The group plans to spend at least $100 million to oust critics of U.S. military support for Israel from Congress. Quote, a Republican-funded super PAC threatened to spend $100 million against us, and our grassroots people-powered campaign has responded loud and clear, Lee said in a statement Thursday. I'm so proud, let's quote, I'm so proud of the multi-generational, multi-racial movement we have built in Western Pennsylvania to protect and expand our democracy. That sounds like Colby.
Yeah.
It is our greatest defense against the dark money, super PACs, and corporate lobbies who seek to undermine it, unquote. AIPAC tried and failed to recruit several challengers to run against Lee, The Intercept reported last year. Lee overcame $5 million in AIPAC spending against her in the 2022 campaign. Okay, that is a big amount, but there were huge amounts spent in other campaigns. I seem to remember a primary out in Oregon where $12 million was spent, on an unknown by Samuel Bankman-Fried and his PAC. The unknown actually lost in that particular campaign, but there was $12 million put on the line there. That was a huge amount. Candidates' 2024 fundraising disclosures are due to the Federal Election Commission on Wednesday. Oh, they were due on Wednesday. We should check to see if they're there today. Lee's top challenger, Bhavini Patel, a borough council member in Edgewood, Pennsylvania, announced earlier this month that her campaign had raised more than $310,000 in the final quarter of last year. Patel has not said whether AIPAC recruited her to challenge Lee, but her campaign is in touch with the group, according to a source familiar with the race. I just bet they are in touch with her, right? In response to a request for comment, Patel's campaign pointed to the fundraising numbers announced earlier this month. Lee's fundraising news comes a week after she won an endorsement from the top three Democrats in the House leadership, including Minority Leader Representative Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat of New York, a major ally and recipient of money, from AIPAC. He is. With Israel's war in Gaza still raging, AIPAC and other major Republican and Democratic donors have pledged to try to oust Lee and other progressive members of the squad over their criticism of U.S. military support for Israel. When asked about AIPAC's efforts, Jeffries has not criticized AIPAC by name, but said Democrats would continue to back their incumbents. And since Summer Lee is now an incumbent, I guess he thinks he's free to back her. Well, I hope he's serious about that, because as much as the squad members have been fairly disappointing, including Summer Lee, they are, generally speaking, far better than the non-squad members of Congress. There are certain exceptions. For example, Katie Porter is pretty strong, and she's not a squad member. But generally speaking, the squad members look good compared to others. Yes, I'm disappointed with them, and I think some of them are sellouts in many respects. In particular, I guess the worst of these is AOC. But still, comparatively speaking, they're pretty good. Any comments at this point, Dee?
Yeah, Summer Lee, she's I'm pretty sure she's been prepping 'cause she knows how, I mean, they were after her last time, so she knows she's really has to raise the money and there's no time to slack.
Steve says he's not really familiar with Summer Lee. Summer Lee was the most lefty of the candidates, which the Democrats ran last time, okay, in Pennsylvania. And she was challenged first, okay, in the primaries by some hostile people with AIPAC support. And then she was challenged by a Republican, okay, in the general, who suddenly had a lot more money than he thought he was going to have. But in the primary, there was a serious race between Summer Lee, okay, and Democratic Wall Street guy who had done a lot of stock trading, okay, on Wall Street, and who was he was rather pro-Israel. Summer Lee in the past has been favorable to Palestinian rights, and she has not really caved about that. She doesn't seem to be selling out. She's for Medicare for all, of course, and for the Green New Deal. She's a legitimate squad member. At the end of as of 2022, she and Maxwell Frost, I believe, okay, and also Delia Ramirez became new members of the squad, if I recall correctly. Okay. Anyway, Summer Lee, as a state representative, was very successful in pushing things through in her state. And she was in part responsible for a revival of left-wing Democratic politics out in Pennsylvania. She was a very good fundraiser, too, in the area of small dollar donations. And as was indicated in the last article, she raised a lot of money to hold off a serious challenge by the Democratic Wall Street guy, who, if I recall correctly, was also Jewish and who ran as a strong supporter, okay, of Israel. So I hope that fills you in a little bit, Steve. I'll go on now to the second piece, which is also has to do with Summer Lee. This one was from Common Dreams. There's another picture of Summer Lee speaking at a press conference in support of a Gaza ceasefire on November 13, 2023. So she was a fairly adherent to the idea of a ceasefire, okay, in Gaza, and is one of those in Congress still working for that and voting for that. After record grassroots fundraising haul, Summer Lee tells AIPAC to bring it on. Quote, they have Donald Trump and Nikki Haley's donors. We have the overwhelming power of the people, unquote, said the Pennsylvania Democrat. It's by Jake Johnson, January 25th, 2024. U.S. Rep. Summer Lee announced that her reelection campaign brought in over $1 million in mostly small dollar donations during the final stretch of 2023. Okay, a hole that the Pennsylvania Democrat cast as a rebuke to AIPAC and other dark money groups aiming to spend big this year to unseat progressives who have pushed for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Quote, the Republican-funded super PAC threatened to spend $100 million against us, and our grassroots loud, okay, and clear. But I guess I have to add, not nearly with $100 million, but only 1/100th of that, said Lee, who was running for a second term in Pennsylvania's 12th district. She also said that same quote I just read from the Intercept article. I'm so proud of the multi-general, multi-racial movement we have built in Western Pennsylvania to protect and expand our democracy. It's our greatest defense against the dark money super PACs and corporate lobbies who seek to undermine it, unquote. And Lee added, quote again, they have Donald Trump and Nikki Haley's donors. We have the overwhelming power of the people, unquote. Lee's campaign, which has been endorsed by the 3 top Democrats in the U.S. House. So under Hakeem Jeffries, there's proof that the policy of Nancy Pelosi has changed and that this group of leaders, top Democrats, okay, in the U.S. House, are going to support the incumbents, okay, in the Democratic Party, even when those incumbents are unpopular with the big money. If this holds, this pattern holds, it's an important change, okay, from Nancy Pelosi, who seemed all too happy to have primary challenges to the squad members. Anyway, the last 3 months of 2023 marked her best ever fundraising quarter, with 90% of the contributions coming in at less than $250 apiece. Lee has refused to take any corporate PAC money. News of the progressive squad, quote unquote, members' record quarter comes on the heels of reports that AIPAC, the influential pro-Israel lobbying group, and allied groups plan to spend upwards of $100 million to defeat Lee and other progressives who have vocally criticized Israel's assault on Gaza. Mark Pocan tweeted, what is dark money? That's anonymous cash spent on campaigns. It's anonymous for a reason. Why is it bad? It subverts democracy and transparency. That's why at AIPAC, involvement in this, spending GOP donations against Democrats in primaries is so bad. Yeah, because that's what AIPAC does. It gets donations from anybody across the board, whether they're Democrats, okay, or are Republicans, and then it spends that money against the Democrats and Democratic primaries, and that is, okay, so bad. He says it should be toxic to rail Democrats, pass it on. Okay, we're passing it on here. Lee was among the 13 original co-sponsors of a ceasefire resolution that Representative Cori Bush introduced in the U.S. House in mid-October. Even before Israel began its latest war in Gaza, following a deadly Hamas-led attack on October 7th, AIPAC was working to recruit candidates to challenge Lee in Pennsylvania's 12th district, according to The Intercept. Lee is currently facing two Democratic primary challengers for the seat she won in 2022, despite a spending onslaught by AIPAC-aligned groups. The incumbent's fourth quarter fundraising haul was more than 3 times larger than that of challenger Bhavini Patel, the Pennsylvania Capital Star reported. Lee's campaign noted Thursday that, quote, among the GOP mega donors who gave AIPAC millions to spend against summer last cycle were Republican billionaire mega donors Bernie Marcus, Jan Koum, and Paul Singer, a man who is best known for giving $80 million, over $80 million to Republican campaigns. Excuse me. And flying Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito on private jets to luxury vacations in exchange for preferential rulings for his hedge fund. AIPAC and affiliated groups have also targeted Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan, Ilhan Omar, Democrat of Minnesota, and Jamal Bowman, Democrat of New York. They don't seem to be targeting AOC anymore, or Presley anymore. I guess they will be targeting Cori Bush, though. I guess we will see that. The watchdog. Oh no, they are targeting Cori Bush. It's mentioned here. I mentioned only 3 of them, but there's also Lee and Cori Bush. I missed it because they weren't in blue. And they've already targeted them with ad spending, in recent weeks. The watchdog Open Secrets noted last month that the United Democracy Project, a super PAC launched by AIPAC, spent $31,300 on Google advertising and over $3,000 on Meta political ads attacking the progressive lawmakers. Those figures, of course, are small potatoes, but maybe not small potatoes at this particular stage of the campaign. On Thursday, AIPAC's Political Action Committee endorsed Westchester County Executive George Latimer, who was challenging Bowman in New York's 16th District. The move marked AIPAC's first non-incumbent endorsement of this election cycle. Nothing else, quote, qualified Democrat, unquote, more than a stamp of approval from this GOP billionaire-funded super PAC, which has endorsed 109 insurrectionists, and which, of course, has also endorsed the genocide in Palestine. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. The progressive group Justice Democrats quipped in response to the endorsement, referring to AIPAC's support for Republicans who voted against certifying the 2020 presidential election. So, of course, one of the big money challenges that's going to be out there for 2024 is going to come, from AIPAC. There would be no better way to reject AIPAC in this case by voting against all the AIPAC candidates. I have to admit, though, that the dump the corruption rule would see this as voting for the candidates taking the least amount of big money. Because we've previously established that there is some big money going to the squad members as well. There wasn't one of them who were not taking campaign donations of $200 or more, $200 or more, and also there wasn't one of them who did not have donations of 200 more as a considerable percentage of the funds that they raised. And we did cover Summer Lee, and we did cover the other squad members, and that was true of all of them, but most true, of course, of Ocasio-Cortez. who raised about half her money from large donors. And if you recall, this was also true in Katie Porter's case, who she raised an awful lot of small donor money, but she raised a huge amount of money from donors who were contributing $200 or more to her campaign. So I'm going to bring up a third of our post tonight. This one is on free market mythology. It appeared, I saw it in Los Angeles Progressive. It was by Francis Moore Lappe. Here's how free market methodology steals, mythology as opposed to methodology, steals our freedom. How can we hope to empower ourselves when we are shackled by the false promises of deregulated capital and exploited by Wall Street greed? And Francis Moore Lappe wrote this one on January 26th, 2024. I want to identify her to start with as an important writer. She's the author of 19 books, beginning with the acclaimed, quote, Diet for a Small Planet. Most recently, she's the co-author, with Adam Eichen of the new book, quote, Daring Democracy, Igniting Power, Meaning, and Connection for the America We Want, unquote. Haven't seen that book, but, the title looks good. Among her numerous previous books are, quote, Echo Mind, Changing the Way We Think to Create the World We Want, unquote. That book was published by The Nation. And, quote, Democracy's Edge, Choosing to Save Our Country by Bringing Democracy to Life, unquote. Of course, that's what I'm trying to do too, so I have considerable sympathy for her. She is co-founder of the Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Small Planet Institute. And you can follow her on Twitter at FMLAPPE, LAPPE. So she's been well known for a very long time, since she published The Diet for a Small Planet. The headline of this column makes a big claim, but I'll go even further. Free market mythology denies us not only political and economic freedom, but psychological liberty as well. In his 1980 inaugural address, Ronald Reagan declared, Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. Very famous saying, which was also quickly picked up by Margaret Thatcher over in England. Soon in the Reagan White House, necktie sporting an image of 18th century philosopher Adam Smith, oft-touted as the founding father of the free market ideology, became all the rage. Reagan's message was clear, says Francis, lower taxes, also minimize government regulation, cut social programs, and the outcome will be a strong economy with more jobs. With less government intrusion in our lives, we'll all be free to do better. Unfortunately, Smith's insights were oversimplified to the point of distortion. His 1776, The Wealth of Nations, was used to justify the premise that a society works best when we each act solely in our self-interest. What's virtually never noted is Smith's judgment that, quote, subjects of every state ought to contribute towards the support of the government as nearly as possible in proportion to the revenue which they respectively enjoy under the protection of the state. Yeah, Smith did say that, but his supporters today evidently think it to mean that subjects of every state ought to contribute towards the support of the candidates they like as nearly as possible in proportion to the revenue which they respectively enjoy under the protection of the state. Of course, Smith didn't mean the candidates. He meant the government. Free market mythology prepares the ground for polarization, often at the expense of those already struggling to stay afloat. Contrary to the view that acting for self is only, quote, natural, unquote, Smith noted in a theory of moral sentiments that it is the, quote, precept of nature to love ourselves only as we love our neighbor, unquote. Adam Smith would probably be a flaming progressive today. That, of course, was my supposition. And today, studies confirm that humans enjoy giving more than receiving. There are some empirical studies out that do show that. Yet blind allegiance to a myth that puts innate selfishness at our center still undergirds the most sacred notion that unimpeded market competition is not only superior but natural. For believers in the free market, public involvement in the market is a grievous sin. The consequences are harsh. Well, I'm not sure I agree that for believers in the free market myth, the public involvement in the market is a sin, since what they all seem to seek is public involvement in the market on their side. They only think it's a grievous sin when the public involvement in the market is against them. In fact, that's what their contributions to politicians are about. They want to make sure that the politicians make sure that any public involvement in the market is to their advantage and not against them. The consequences are harsh. For one, we are made to doubt the essential positive role of democratic governance in enabling and protecting widespread economic prosperity, as well as in achieving many essential public goods, from healthcare and education to environmental protection. Market mythology ignores the fact that all markets have rules, even if unwritten. In a capitalist market like ours, what is the unspoken, quote, rule, unquote? It's simple. The more you have, the more you accrue. The pursuit of wealth thus becomes not merely a means to an end, but the end. The sole aim justifying personal enrichment at the expense of others. The result is wealth inequality in the United States that does not comport with our self-image as a beacon, of fairness. Yes, I'm not sure there are many other nations that view us as a beacon of fairness these days. Of 200 countries ranked from the most extreme wealth inequality, we come in 28th from the worst, between Peru and El Salvador. Here, we come in 28th from the worst. 28 from the worst out of 200 countries. That's a plutocracy, folks. Here's the top 1% control. Here, the top 1% control about a third of household wealth. The bottom 50%, over 165 million Americans, control a meager 2.5% of wealth. Moreover, such a market ensures tightening corporate power, undermining the very competition touted as a prime goal. Between 1985 and 2017, yearly corporate mergers jumped almost sevenfold. So today, the top 5 healthcare companies enjoy 99.4% of the revenue in the market. The companies control over 94% of carbonated, 3 companies control over 94% of carbonated soft drinks. Coca-Cola and PepsiCo alone account for 69% of the retail market. The harm from such concentrated wealth show up in citizens unable to afford decent housing, as well as in deprivation of essential goods. No surprise, therefore, that in both access and outcomes, our healthcare ranks last among, quote, high-income countries. Last. Sadly, market mythology also leads to self-blame. Once swallowing the myth that regardless of circumstance, anyone in America can make it if they work hard, self-doubt and shame become absolutely unavoidable. And that's a big problem for any society. Shame is the most painful of human emotions, which we often fight by seeking others to blame. Maybe it's immigrants who will take our jobs. Maybe it's those liberals who want to reward the lazy. In any case, free market myths prepare the grounds for polarization, often at the expense of those already struggling to stay afloat. Thus, to build strong democratic culture, let us challenge the pernicious mythology of a, quote, free market purporting fairness but thwarting opportunity. How? We can start by facing the sad truth that the United States ranks 60th among the world's nations in political rights and civil liberties, between Panama and Samoa, according to Freedom House, which was co-founded, by Eleanor Roosevelt. And as we have in the past, we can create rules that break up the power, of the monopolies and strengthen, the labor movement. We can expand social services to right the shortcomings of the free market and bring us closer to the standards of our peer nations. Again, for example, we could double our Social Security payments, to people who are on Social Security. Once debunking disempowering free market myths, we are free to embrace our empowering, widely shared values, those putting human and environmental well-being first. Well, that, of course, is a very interesting piece. It provides a backdrop, though, for what's been happening in the area of dump the corruption and what is happening now on the political scene. Because since Americans, since the 1970s and the 1980s, have bought into the free market myth in spades, we've had an extreme advance of inequality, in our country. And what is that inequality doing? It's empowering, the billionaires to make huge contributions to political campaigns. It makes them.
Helps their sales.
Huh?
It helps their sales.
It helps their sales because they get laws passed that are favorable to them because they corrupt our representatives, okay, in Congress. So one important thing for Dump the Corruption, okay, is the realization that in dumping the corruption, we will also be dumping, okay, the legislators who uphold the free market mythology. And that is a very, very important thing, okay, for us to do. Okay. Dee, any comments you want to make at this point?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that whole free market, most people don't even know what it is. You know, they just keep hearing it on the news all the time, and they think it's, you know, that somehow that's what everything's about. You know, and they think the whole economy is based on what the market says, not the average, you know, daily economy for people, the average person. And that's what I see all the time. Because I was just thinking Auntie Candy commented about the price of eggs. And, you know, the supermarkets, it's the one thing, the prices have been crazy.
Yeah, they've gone crazy. I know. Okay, I figure we're paying 35% more per week for food. I think our average spending has gone up from, yes,
I think I've got an allergy or something.
yes, okay, excuse me for a second.
I'm gonna take 2 of these.
No, take one.
One? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. Also, you should remember that okay, I'm not sure that's the best thing to take because, as I recall, you had you know, a strong allergic reaction.
Yeah, Fran Bauer made my red beret too.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, because Steve Wolfbrand is wearing his, he said.
Okay. Okay. I think what you should probably take is the you know, one in the bottle with the green label.
Okay.
It's the smaller pills because you don't have an allergic reaction to those. Okay, excuse me, folks. I had you know, a little bit of an emergency here that I had to take care of.
That's okay. And the one thing, and that's what got me when you look at TV, um, or not just TV, but you know, when I see it on the computer from different shows talking about Biden with the economy, he's done such a great job. And then they ask people, and everybody's saying the same thing: the price of their rent and the price of food. People are saying, you know, food's just unbelievable. The price, how it's gone up.
And that's very significant for old people whose primary income is from Social Security, because even though there was a big increase in Social Security, I think last year was 7.8% in Social Security. Okay, but this year the increase went down to 3.4%. So over the 2 years, okay, it was about 11%. But with food prices going up by about 35% and rent also going up and other costs, okay, such as drugs going up, also the automobile insurance, okay, has been going up, okay, considerably. I mean, our automobile insurance has gone up from something like $75 a month to $110 a month.
That's a lot.
And there are a number of other costs that have gone up far more than the increase in Social Security and far more than the average inflation that people, okay, are looking at now. Okay, what the administration doesn't realize, I think, that uh, though current rates of inflation might have fallen to 3%, those are the rates of inflation following the explosion of prices that we have
Mhm.
had, okay, over 2 years. Okay, so the lower rates now do not undo the damage. The only way to undo the damage is to raise the income of people, or, of course, if prices began to go down, but you would need a negative rate of the CPI for that to happen. And we're not seeing much of that, are we?
Nope.
Right. So Biden thinks everything is great because the inflation rates have gone down so much. Well, it may be great for him because his income might be going up, but our income isn't going up to cover that.
Right. And I saw about this man. He was talking about he says that he's well educated, and he says he's young, and he says that he's having a struggle, like in Rhode Island, finding like a wooden bedroom at a decent price. He says, I'm not asking for a lot. And it's just the price is just it makes you feel that you really, he says, I do have a very good income, but with the prices, it grabs at everything between food and, like you said, all the others, and then not looking for an apartment that's super expensive, but just something to get by. But everything is so high. So it's difficult, and you see more and more people talking about that, and that's, I think, why more people are sleeping in their cars, because they just can't afford a place. And it's sad for children, seeing families, children sleeping in the car.
There are lots and lots of people who are suffering because of damage that has been done to them over the COVID period, okay, and over the inflation period. And they're not going to think times are good until the damage, okay, is undone. And
Mm-hmm.
the Biden administration has not been aggressive enough in undoing the damage.
No, it's been.
That's been done. Okay, I think there should have been further stimulus payments
Mm-hmm.
to help people, and I think there should have been price controls to
Mm-hmm.
stop the price gouging, and Biden did not do that.
No, all he cared about was overseas, nothing with what's going on here.
Well, he cared about what was going on here in the first period of his administration, but for the last year, he hasn't cared about anything except foreign policy. He got lost, okay, in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
just as Lyndon Johnson got caught, got lost, okay, in Vietnam back in the 1960s, and now, okay, he's lost in Israel. Okay, and he just thinks that people are going to tolerate what is virtually an absent sort of presidency,
Mm-hmm.
from a domestic point of view. People are not going to tolerate that. And if you look at history, like, for example, why did Winston Churchill lose in 1944? I mean, he was such a big war hero, for leading the British. But he lost to Clement Attlee, okay, in 1944. Why? Because the British were sick and tired of austerity.
Mm-hmm.
And so they tried socialism for a while. And one thing they got out of it was the National Health Service, which, in spite of the fact that Tories have been trying to weaken it year after year, okay, year, it's still extremely popular, okay, with the Brits, because it's been a wonderful program, okay, over a period of time. Okay, we can also look at Harry Truman. He tried to do many good things in his presidency. Then he was mired down, okay, in the Korean War. By the time he got finished, when he was mired down, okay, in the Korean War, he ceased to do anything. Okay. Uh, by the time he was finished, his approval rating had fallen to 23%. and he couldn't even dream of running for the presidency again. So he withdrew, and there was a landslide, okay, for Eisenhower. Okay, and also there are some other examples of this are, with respect to Lyndon Johnson, of course. He at first was very, very popular, but then he got involved, okay, in Vietnam, and he knew nothing else, okay, except for that. And so he had to withdraw from running again in 1968 because he had become extremely unpopular. Okay, and then we go to George Bush, the younger. Well, maybe we need to go to Jimmy Carter and talk about Jimmy Carter. Okay, Jimmy Carter was starting to do some good things for people and good things for the economy in his first 2 years, okay, in the presidency. But when the inflation hit, he really failed to do very much about it, okay, in the short run. And meanwhile, he became embroiled in foreign affairs as well. And his fostering a peace agreement, okay, between Egypt, okay, and Israel, though very, very important at the time, did not help him a bit when he wanted to run for re-election. Okay, nobody cared about that. All they cared about, it was the misery index and high inflation, okay, and high unemployment as well. So that was another case. But then George Bush, okay, in his presidency, he was very popular at one time, okay, at the beginning of his presidency. He was very popular for, having a devastating war in Iraq and seemingly winning it. But then he started practicing austerity and fiscal responsibility. And by the end of his term in 1992, of course, George Bush, that is Bush 41, was very unpopular. Okay, so you have a repeating pattern, okay, with presidents. They get involved in foreign affairs, okay, mired down, okay, in foreign affairs. And they don't understand that people don't care about foreign affairs. They care about what's going on the domestic economic front. You can't allow yourself to lose control of that. Biden has lost control of that. He lost control of the House, so the Republicans don't want him to have any successes, okay, to show. And one reason why he lost control of the House is he became involved, okay, in foreign affairs. And he just didn't care about, doing anything for the people anymore. And so now he's going to have a problem. Okay, I'm going to look at some comments before I go on to the first article. Steve says, I haven't seen Robert from Sacramento on here in a long time. I hope he's okay. Robert said, just been busy, but I am here. I don't think it's been that so long, okay, since Robert's been here, maybe 3 shows or 4 shows, but Steve says, okay, Robert, cool. Steve says, I'm really not familiar with Ms. Lee. And he says, I lost interest in the squad. Robert says, I don't see the Sacramento City Council endorsing a ceasefire as the mayor and one of the other city council members are Jewish and support what is happening, okay, in the Gaza Strip. Yeah, I've been noticing in other parts of California, like in the Palo Alto area, okay, those people seem to be very much in favor of what's happening, okay, in the Gaza Strip also. And they're being subjected to a considerable amount of public pressure, okay, in meetings. And so the people running for something like for Congress, for city council, will make some statements about what's happening, in Gaza. And of course, they come out with all the statements about Hamas is murderous and they were guilty of burning people and rapes, and they were responsible for the 1,200 deaths. But of course, the activists who are confronting them are people who've been watching the alternative media. And they know better than the Israeli propaganda narrative. And all the people running for office are just spouting the Israeli propaganda narrative. And so these meetings are becoming very, very disorderly, to say the least, because the people running are spouting lies, and the people in the audience are calling them liars. So there it is. Steve Wolfman says, don't we have a Barbara Lee here in California running for Senate Peace candidate? Yeah, Barbara Lee and Summer Lee are different people. The area where Barbara Lee is strongest is in foreign policy. And she's always been for avoiding war as much as she can. She was the only one to vote against the Iraq War. I think the authorization of the use of military force, the AUMF, which is still allowing presidents to intervene in foreign countries today. She was like the only congressperson who voted against that. And she's known for that, of course. So she's known for her foreign policy cred. Summer's pretty cool. Yeah, I think she's pretty cool. I don't know how much we can count on her. We don't know how much we can count on anybody. But Summer seems pretty consistent, certainly more consistent, than AOC is at this point in time. Steve says, sometimes, Doc, all the money can't win you, an election. Well, I think it depends on what you are running against. I think even if you have something like $12 million from a super PAC or something like that, and you have no political experience, and you don't have a particularly attractive kind of platform, you don't really seem to be running for the people, then someone who's running, who's fairly well connected, who's connected to local politics and who people know and who have, a modicum of money can still beat you. And that's what happened, in the Oregon election, we're talking about. The guy with the $12 million was beaten by someone who raised roughly $3 million, which was enough money to get her message out. And I'd characterize her as a half progressive. She was nowhere near as far left, as some of the leftists are, but maybe she's as far left as Bonnie Watson Coleman, from New Jersey, for example, who has some decent values here. Steve says, all the money in the world, sorry. Yeah, sometimes all the money in the world can't get you an election, but the people who are running against you do have to have enough money to get their message out. And at the congressional level, in many races across the country, that has to be more than the average of $2.7 million that congressional people were raising in 2022. Steve Wolfbread says $200 isn't that much, Doc. I know. But think about it, Steve. who can afford to give $200 to a campaign? I mean, generally speaking, it's got to be people in the top 10%. So, if the only money people are getting is from corporations, from super PACs, from PACs, and from people who can afford to spend more than $200 on campaigns, then all those people, the other 90%, are not being represented in Congress, Steve. That's happening. Okay, you know, when you can see it, you don't see the squad members, who are the most lefty squad members we have, fighting tooth and nail for the poor, fighting tooth and nail for the middle class. They're not doing that. They're good on some issues. They came out for a ceasefire, okay, at this point. They do want to tax the rich more, and I think they're sincere about that. They are pretty good, okay, on racial issues. They're certainly for voting rights, and they're certainly for choice. But when you come right down to it, they don't fight too hard for the poor, okay, you know, and for the middle class. Steve says, I think you could go up to 1,000 before the money gets dirty. They say you can buy a senator, okay, according to BlackRock, okay, I believe. Okay, I don't agree with that. It's not that the money gets dirty. I'm not saying the money gets dirty, Steve. What I'm saying is when you have people who have given over $200, when someone gives you more than $200, then they think they're sufficiently active and they care, okay, you know, a sufficient amount, that they will also come down to your office and they will talk to you, or they will talk to your staff, or they will do a variety of other things to try to influence what you do. Because they not only have the money to do that, they have the time. And so you're going to be getting their point of view on things. You're not going to be getting the point of view of those people who can't afford to make the $200 contribution. And like I say, that's 90% of us, maybe more than 90% of us. So I'm not saying the money is dirty if it's a $500 contribution. Okay, I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm saying that there's a class bias that exists in the whole Congress due to the fact that all the Congress people are relying heavily on contributions, $200, okay, and over. And all of them are familiar with the outlook and the concerns, okay, and the priorities of those who can make the $200, okay, and over contributions. But they're not paying attention, okay, to those who can only afford to make $5 contributions or $15 contributions, okay, or or $20 contributions. And that's even true when they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars based on those contributions. They still don't talk to the $5, $10, $25 contributors. But they do occasionally talk to the over $200 contributors. So Steve says, buy a senator for $10K. Sorry. Yeah. Hey, Steve says, smoke a KOI. I suppose that's a joint. Then Steve said, smoke the joint with my sexy neighbor on the roof of our building. Now I can't type. Steve says, was it her or the weed? Kay says, laugh out loud, Steve. Andy says, hey, Joe and folks, just got home. Effing greedflation are back. Eggs are $1.99 for a dozen and up every week. And the cold case is packed. So don't give me that inflation shit. Steve Wilbrand says, I wear my red beret when I listen to Doc. Steve says, Fran Bauer made it. Steve, this red beret was made, okay, by Laura. And I always wear it, okay, when I'm streaming, okay, because the red beret that's have been made by Fran, okay, and Michelle. Those are wonderful red berets, but they're the ones I wear, okay, when I go outside. Because this red beret is light and comfortable for indoor wear, okay, even in the summer. But Fran made some beautiful red berets for me. I absolutely love them. And Michelle did too. They're absolutely beautiful. Okay, so all the red berets I've gotten are great. Okay, and I love them all.
And I like mine.
Okay, and Bonnie loves hers too. Okay, but I don't want to be hot when I'm streaming, so I wear Laura's. And Steve says, Doc, I'm always here for you. Okay, if you need help, you know that. Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. I know that sometimes you get pissed off at me. Okay, but I know you're always here to help me if I need it. So thank you very much. Robert Copeland says rent is going up faster than the rate of inflation. And Kay says, yes, Robert, rent is going up faster, okay, than the rate of inflation. Okay, I personally am in a good spot on that because I'm in a federally subsidized building. And the people who own this building, okay, are required to keep the rental increases to $15 per year. So my Social Security increases are enough to cover the $15 per year at least. So Steve says, Doc, what do you think about the new robots taking the price of everything going down? I'm sure that's going to happen in certain cases, Steve. Okay, and that's going to be good for those who are consumers. Okay, but I think also the businesses are going to take more profits if they possibly can. And if they're not in competitive industries, they will be able to price gouge. So even though they may start to lower prices somewhat, I don't think that's going to kill, okay, inflation. I think one thing that's going to kill inflation, or at least really benefit us, okay, in lowering inflation, is going to be lowering interest rates, okay, to zero. The MMT program, okay, of ZIRP, coupled with the right kind of fiscal policy and regulation, can knock the heart out of inflation. Robert Copeland says, okay, a lot of people are living in substandard housing. Yes, that is true. Steve says, Tesla Gen 2 Optimus or Optimus Gen 2. I guess that's a new lower priced Tesla car that's going to be coming out. I sure hope so. Steve Wolfman says, Barbara Lee, I'm in. Peace. Okay, Barbara Lee, of course, as I think you know, Steve, is running for the Senate, okay, in California. Her major opponents are Adam Schiff, okay, who is the big deep state guy. He's been in bed with the deep state for hours, okay, and hours. I'm sorry, for years and years. It would be important to get him out of there and to get him out of the House at the same time. So this year we have a chance for a twofer if we can get him out of there, because of course he won't be able to run for the House. So he'll be out of the House too, and that will be great. But his two opponents, both of whom are very good, okay, one, okay, is Barbara Lee, of course, but the other person who's very good is Katie Porter. And Katie Porter gives a lot harder time to the Wall Streeters and the large corporations than Barbara Lee does. And Katie Porter would continue to do it, okay, as a senator. I think over a period of time, she would be, okay, a very good senator. Where Barbara Lee is good, she's good in foreign policy. And she would be a loud voice, okay, in the Senate for changing the nature of our foreign policy, okay, over a period of time. And people love Barbara Lee also, and they have good reason to love her because she's been so consistent, okay, over a period of time. So being a senator would be the capper for her career. And in some sense, she certainly deserves it. But it's also true that Katie Porter has been a fine representative. She's extremely intelligent. She has a long career that's ahead of her. And she's not ready to retire. But if she loses, she's going to lose her House seat and she will not gain, okay, a Senate seat. So, okay, even though, okay, I regret, if I was in California, okay, I would, regret having to make a choice on this. If I had to make one, I would go more for Katie Porter because in the area of domestic politics, she will do more for people. And in the area of foreign policy, okay, a House member who's not a part, okay, of leadership can't affect foreign policy very much. The same is true for the Senate. It would be years before Barbara Lee could have a great effect on the foreign policy of the United States. And she won't be around for years. Okay, Katie Porter is pretty quiet, okay, when it comes to foreign policy. I don't know whether, she stood up for a ceasefire, okay, or not. Anyway, I think I've said enough about those two. Steve Wolfbrand says, a negative doc, I've given that my MUU. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, I've given that much myself. Yes, I know, Steve, but you are rare. You are really rare. Okay, when I was younger, I used to make a pretty good living, of course. You have to remember, I'm 85 now, so I basically run out of. I've been running out of money for years. Okay, but point is, but even when I was making, okay, a lot of money, I wouldn't give $200 to a campaign. I just wouldn't. It was simply too much money, okay, to give to a politician. I came close when Bernie ran, okay, in 2016. I came close then because I was very much for Bernie, but by 2016 we couldn't afford to give $200 or more to anybody, including Bernie. Steve says $15. Here it is. It's 5% here. It's a robot. Okay, Optimus. Kay says, I like Porter. Steve says, two first sounds, kinky. Robert Copeland says, Steve Garvey is a leading Republican running for U.S. Senate here in California. Robert Copeland says, but Robert, he sucks. Yeah, he's a former baseball player, isn't he? Pitcher. Steve says, I don't know what sports have to do with politics. I don't think sports necessarily have anything to do with politics, but when someone who has a name because he's a sports figure, what I think you have to do there is to look at what he stands for and find out how much he knows. Sports figures do have a lot of free time. They have a lot of time to learn about politics and to become very conversant with it. And they may have good values. So, I mean, I know when you look at a Herschel Walker, I mean, he was an idiot. He was an ass. And there were a lot of other sports figures who, didn't really know much when it came to politics. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can answer a question of Bonnie's. I know you have a question about that, so let me see it.
I can't see the.
Yeah, I know you can't read the fine print.
Just when I took one tablet.
Oh, okay. I think you can take a second one of those. It's not going to harm you.
It won't hurt me?
No. No, you can take a second one of those. That's good. Steve says first base. Oh, was he first base, Steve Garvey? I thought he was a pitcher. Well, I used to pay close attention to politics, but these days to sports, but these days I have no time. I'm so wound up into politics. I just don't have time to do anything else. I love the politics so much. On that note, I'm going to get to the third piece. I don't think it's going to take me that long. So the third piece was about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I get increasingly negative on as the campaign goes on. He's basically been running away from me for some long time now. I had really substantial hope in him at the start because of some of his attitudes. So here's the headline from the Hill. Do I have this up? I guess I do have it up. Okay, this was from January 27, 2024. RFK Jr. signals he's open to running as Libertarian in 2024. This article was by Philip Batamogia. And there's a picture of Bobby speaking at the New York State Capitol May 14th, 2019 in Albany, New York. Of course, he was an anti-vaccine activist and scion of one of the country's most famous families. I've always thought calling him that was a smear. Okay, it seems to me he's advocated for more testing, of vaccines. I think he's right about that. So I don't think he's anti-vaccine. His own family has all been vaccinated. He's all been vaccinated, so he's not an anti-vacciner. Is running for president. Kennedy, a Democrat, filed a statement of candidacy April 6th, 2023 with the Federal Election Commission. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. signaled he's open to running as a Libertarian Party candidate in 2024 as he continues his quest of getting on the ballot in all 50 states come November. During his appearance on CNN Saturday morning, Kennedy was asked by anchor Michael Smirkanish, if we would seek the Libertarian Party nomination, as he's still running as an independent to make sure he can appear on the ballot in all 50 states and in D.C. Kennedy said he's open to that possibility, mentioning he has a really good relationship with the Libertarian Party, that he might speak at the party's California convention soon. Quote, that is something that we're looking at, unquote. Kennedy said on Saturday, we have a really good relationship with the Libertarian Party. I'm going to be speaking at the California Libertarian Party convention. I think it's next week or maybe in a couple of weeks. And we're talking about me speaking in New York. In his response, Kennedy added that his campaign has filed paperwork to create their own party in 6 states to bolster ballot access with a smaller amount of signatures. Quote, and then we have our own political party now in 6 states, which have rules that give us an advantage to have our own political party, Kennedy said. 2 weeks ago, his campaign started forming the, quote, we the people, quote, party in North Carolina, Hawaii, Delaware, and California. That's 4 states, along with the Texas Independent Party, which would help him get on the ballot in those 6 states. Now, that's only 5 states, right? North Carolina, Hawaii, Delaware, and California, and Texas, 5 states, with far fewer signatures. After Kennedy's response, Smirkanish then played the audio from his podcast where the head of the Libertarian Party, Angela McArdle, mentioned the good relationship they have with the independent candidate. Kennedy confirmed that they've had conversations and that he agrees with most of what the party stands for. He says, yeah, well, we're talking to the Libertarian Party, and I feel very comfortable with most of the values of the Libertarian Party, unquote, Kennedy said. Quote, we have good relationships. I'm talking regularly to libertarian groups, so we'll continue to do those talks, unquote. It's pretty non-committal, I think, except he is going to continue to have the talks because he wants to leave open the possibility, because at this point he doesn't know whether he can get on the 50 ballots while running as an independent. He just doesn't know. He knows that's going to take a lot of money. I think he has $15 million on hand right now. At least, I think at the end of the year, he had about $15 million on hand. He may have more on hand right now. As some of you know who've been watching these programs, Dump the Corruption programs, I pointed out, a few days back, that when looking at the $25 million he raised so far, and the $9 to $10 million that he spent, there was no evidence that I could see from the open secrets, statistics, that he was taking a lot of big money, explaining his extremely strong support for Israel as it now exists. But of course, I haven't seen any figures from open secrets since the end of the year. Actually, since the end of November. So I don't know what any new statistics would show. As he continues his independent White House bid, Kennedy recently elicited some concerns from Democrats who think he might tilt the election to former President Trump, GOP's likely nominee. If he maintains his solid polling numbers in swing states like Georgia and Arizona battlegrounds, they're hard to win for all candidates. Well, there are people who say he'll pull more from the Republicans, people who say he will pull more from the Democrats. In my view, we need somebody else in the presidency other than Joe Biden, or Donald Trump. I think that choice is a terrible choice we must avoid. I think Robert Kennedy is still a possibility for avoiding that particular terrible choice. On the other hand, he has so many things wrong with him that is simply a problem. How many things does he have wrong with him? Let's see if I can quickly dredge up my list here, which is not a comprehensive list. It's a short list, which I put in a tweet some time ago. Can I find it again quickly? I don't know. Let's see. Let's go back and give it a go. Well, let me see if I can resurrect it, from memory. He's for fiscal responsibility in the austerity sense, of the term. He believes in small deficits, which generally means, given the complexion of the Congress, he'd be for cutting spending. That would be good if it was military spending, but it would not be good, if it was other kind of spending. He's against either getting rid of or reforming the filibuster because he thinks it's a democratic institution. Other than the sheer stupidity of that particular position, I just don't know what else to say. Sheer stupidity. Number 3, he knows nothing, of MMT. Number 4, though his record is very good on the environment as a general matter, he has been careful not to get involved in climate activism. And climate activism is what we need, right now. Am I up to number 4D or number 5?
Oh, you're not on the screen.
I'm sorry, I'm not on the screen.
Right.
Is
Is
my face not on the screen?
Oh, your face is, but the article's not up.
Oh, the article doesn't have to be up because I'm done with the article right now.
Oh, okay.
I've completed it. Okay, so what? Was I at the 4th thing wrong with Robert Kennedy?
I don't know. I don't know. I was listening to you, and
Okay,
I was thinking.
okay. I think that I had done 4 things already. So number 5, of course, is he doesn't know any MMT at all.
No.
And he says stupid things by the day when it comes to federal funding, okay, in economics. Number 6, he has that terrible, terrible position, which he is not backed off of, okay, when it comes to Israel. What he needs now, most of all, for his campaign, is to forget his focus, okay, on the ballot, okay, for the moment, and come out with a strong position, okay, on a ceasefire and getting Israel to end, okay, the genocide. He really needs to do that so badly.
I was going to say with him, the one issue when you were talking about the environment, he doesn't want to say too much, I think, because of his right-wing support. People on the right, he doesn't want to, and the same thing where Israel is concerned. He's got, a bunch of right-wingers, and then you said like he wants to get the money.
Right, right. Okay, I understand that. But I think he has said himself. Okay, let me complete, okay, my list, and then I'll come back to this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, the other part of my list, of course, I was at his extremely silly support Israel, okay, position. Okay, then again, he has a position on Medicare for all. And his position is exactly the same, okay, as Obama's was. It's that if we were starting afresh, that would be the right thing to do. That is, okay, the right thing to do. But I'm not going to do it because it's too heavy a lift. So that's the 7th thing that's wrong with him. And the 8th thing, okay, that's wrong with him, of course, is that he's looking for big money and he's taking big money. He's also trying to get oriented towards doing everything with only small donations. Some of his emails that have been coming out, which I've been watching very carefully, have called for small donations, small dollar donations. Give me everything you can, even though it's $5. Even if it's $5. Okay, I need your help. Okay, but I don't need to raise $2 billion for my campaign. I can do this if I raise $500 million because I have popular support. So that's the way he's emailing us. Okay. So if he only needs $500 million, he doesn't have to take any large donations of any kind. He can run according to the rule. How do I know this? Because Bernie raised over $200 million by April of 2020. And that's before the election and contributions get real hot. God knows what he might have raised if he hadn't dropped out, in April. He had May, June, July, August, September, and October to go. He could well have raised $100 million a month in small donations. Now, Bernie did take, some large donations, but his average donation by the end of that campaign was something like $18 per donation. And maybe even lower, I forget now. It might have gone even lower by the end of that campaign. He was getting an enormous amount of small dollar donations. And they were mostly funding his campaign back then. So I think Bernie shows that it can be done. If people see you doing it.
That's what's a shame. It really is a shame that he got so screwed over.
You mean Bernie?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, the world would be a better place now, far better place, if he had become the president in 2016. I think there would have been no Ukraine war.
hmm
And I think he would have blocked, I think he would have put Israel, on a tighter leash
I think so too.
with respect to our support. So D says to K, good to see you, K. And Andy Candy says, had Wi-Fi outage. I missed a lot. I'll have to rewatch. Sorry to hear that, Andy. I think we're about ready to wrap up now.
Yeah, so please hit the like button, subscribe, and share, share, share.
Okay, I do want to tell you something. Okay, I do want to make an announcement. As you know, we have very small audiences here. And while I love these lengthy streams, they really give me a chance to go into detail about on certain issues. I just have to do all I can to grow this Stump the Corruption movement. And we're not making any progress here. So next week, I'm going to change my approach. I'll still be on Dee's shows when she has her shows. Okay, and they'll be the length that she wants to have. But what I'm going to do now on a continuing basis is from Tuesday through Friday. What I think I'm going to do now is to start doing much shorter shows, like maybe 3 half-hour shows per day,
Okay.
and maybe even shorter than a half hour. I'll be focusing on one issue, and I'm just going to run the gamut of issues. Of course,
hmm
it'll have a focus of dump the corruption, empowering democracy, as usual. But I won't be having these long shows, anymore. And I won't be having shows at a set time.
Okay.
So you'll have to watch for the notifications, from YouTube for those shows.
Okay.
But they're going to be throughout, the day. I'll be reacting to developments and making commentary, on developments.
That sounds good.
And I'm going to see how that goes for a while, see if it makes any difference. Okay, in the way things are going, I haven't been able to monetize, as you know.
Right.
Even though I have, I don't know how many videos I have now, it must be 900 or 1,000, or whatever. I still haven't gotten to 1,000 subscribers. Okay, I got to stop that.
Mhm.
I have to be able to monetize.
Right.
And so those changes will be coming. I'll be starting next week on Tuesday, with those
Okay.
changes. I'll most probably be on one of these shows, over the weekend.
Okay. Sounds good.
So Steve is here and says Hamas. Okay,
Namaste.
Hamas Day, yes. And it sounds good, Joe. I'll just have to rewatch the shorter shows if I'm busy. I'd love for you to react, to developments. well, I'm not just going to be reacting, okay, to developments. I'll be reacting to political positions, uh, to things other people have said, okay, on other shows. I'll be doing some of the same kind of thing, okay, I'm doing here, but I'll be doing shorter shows, so I won't be going through articles, okay, at length. I'll be picking up points from articles
Right.
and talking about those. So that's going to be different, and I'm going to see how that works. Okay, and see if it works better. So on that note, I'll say good night, and I'll see you on D show. Okay, in the normal mode.
Normal mode.
Thank you, Andy.
And buy Joe a coffee.
Oh yeah, please do buy me a coffee. Please do visit my Patreon account and buy a coffee for D2, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Visit buymeacoffee.com, and it's D Peters, all one word.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so buy D coffee too.
All right.
So thank you folks for coming, and good night all.
And good night and good night, Bonnie.
Good night.
Okay, and Andy says night, my angels on earth.
Oh,
Thank you, Andy.
yeah, good night, Kay.
Okay, good night, Dee, and thank you for coming
You're welcome.
and helping me hold the fort.
See you tomorrow.
Oh, so you're going to have a show tomorrow night?
Yeah, tomorrow I will, yes.
Okay, I'll probably be there for that show.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks.